Rosetta, a sunfish residing in the imperial palace, is known for her delicate nature, often collapsing at the slightest provocation. Despite her fragility, she possesses a lively and spirited personality. It is worth noting that sunfish are typically resilient creatures, making Rosetta's vulnerability all the more pronounced. However, the people at the palace are not repelled by her weaknesses. Instead, they are drawn to her for reasons beyond her physical beauty and noble lineage. Strangely enough, everyone who has worked for the prince for a mere 3 days or less has been labeled as mad. 2 assassins attempted to kill the prince, prompting Rosetta to question their motives. One of the assassins responds, explaining that the sunfish of the imperial palace, like Rosetta, is a witness to things that should remain unseen, and therefore, must be eliminated. Although he apologizes, he claims that he has no choice but to carry out the act. In a surprising turn of events, Rosetta takes the assassin's knife, acknowledging his skill but lamenting the waste of such talent. The other assassin wonders if Rosetta had been hiding her true identity all along and if she is the reason behind the failed assassination attempts on the crown prince. As he finishes his sentence, he collapses to the floor. When a maid inquires about Rosetta's whereabouts, she explains that she accidentally fell into a pond earlier, causing her delay. The maid informs her that His Majesty is looking for her, to which Rosetta assures that she will return promptly. In the subsequent scene, Rosetta encounters the crown prince and realizes that he is the true sunfish, having died multiple times in his past lives. She is determined to save him, believing that her decision to become a maid instead of a knight was the correct one. The prince expresses his relief upon seeing her, as he had been anxiously awaiting her arrival. Rosetta ponders why he is out in broad daylight, recalling her previous life when she had urged Valerian to turn back time. Valerian responded with uncertainty, admitting that he didn't know what to say. On the other hand, Rosetta brushed off his concern, stating that it didn't matter. Rosetta was known as the Empire's most powerful sword, a trusted friend of the Archmage, and the only swordmaster in the entire Empire. She served as an escort knight directly under the Crown Prince, but unfortunately, she failed to protect him. She found herself transported back in time by 10 years, only to discover that His Majesty had already been assassinated. Not only that, if Rosetta couldn't prevent the prince's death, she would be stuck in her 20s. The prince's strategy of regression and gaining his cooperation had also failed. Now, she had no choice but to enter the 5th loop. The only option left for her was to position herself where she could freely enter the prince's room, even though he didn't want an escort. In this new life, Rosetta became a maid in the imperial palace and a sunfish of the crown prince's court. As she introduced herself to His Majesty, she couldn't help but think about the prince's chamber, a place she rarely visited as an escort knight. Rosetta expressed her pleasure in meeting him and looked forward to serving him in the future. The prince simply replied with an indifferent, "Okay." Rosetta couldn't help but wonder if he had always been this rude, or if it was because she was now a maid. It was the first time in her life that she had been treated poorly, but instead of being discouraged, it fueled her determination. From now on, she would slowly open His Highness's heart and tame him. Melanie thought there was nothing impressive about her. Before she could boast about her aristocratic roots, she approached Rosetta. The maid, however, believed that Rosetta looked better in a maid outfit than a dress. Rosetta graciously thanked her, admitting that she also liked the outfit. The maid believed that this individual had a mind filled with fanciful thoughts and considered her to be a naive and attractive fool. After a few days, the maid instructed her to eat a cookie that she had obtained from the kitchen, emphasizing that it was meant only for her and not to be given to anyone else. Another maid questioned why she was treating her like a child, initially harboring dislike towards her. The maid responded that it was how things were in the beginning. However, when Rosetta is confronted about her mistakes, she promptly apologizes. She excels at everything and even assists the other maids in her free time. How could one not like someone like that? And to top it all off, she possesses a beautiful smile. Suddenly, she screamed, leaving Rosetta perplexed. The other maid informed her that she had to clean the crown prince's room. Rosetta questioned why it was so surprising, to which she was told that there were rumors of the crown prince being insane. Rosetta decided to take on the task of cleaning the crown prince's room, believing it was time to start taming him. In the next scene, Rosetta pondered how she'll manage to make the prince open up to her. The prince preferred maids who worked silently, without engaging in conversation. Rosetta resolved to be a maid who simply did her job well. If she became too friendly, the prince would become suspicious due to his cautious nature. Armand, who was born as the second prince, had difficulty trusting others due to numerous assassination attempts he had faced before becoming the crown prince. He observed Rosetta closely as she cleaned, wondering why someone would watch their personal maid so intently. This was why the maids disliked him, believing him to be a mad crown prince. However, Rosetta believed in pushing boundaries. When she finished cleaning, the prince exclaimed in surprise. Rosetta commented on the pleasant weather and asked if she should leave the window open to let in the warm and gentle breeze. The prince curtly told her to leave if she was done. Afterward, the maid inquired if everything was all right. Rosetta assured, "Don't worry, she is much stronger than she appears." The next day, Prince pondered, "I thought he said she only cleaned every 3 days, but she comes and goes every day. Unlike the maids who used to fiddle with something or disappear without a word, she doesn't act suspiciously." Rosetta stated, "The weather is fantastic today. Why don't you go for a walk? She got a cookie earlier with a gem in it. Would you like it? If she's done, then get out," Prince replied. Rosetta thought to herself, "It's hard to tell if any progress has been made. This has been going on for weeks now, and there is no sign of him opening up. But let's not get discouraged. Tomorrow, we will push harder." The next day, Rosetta thought, "He looks as beautiful as ever." She apologizes to His Majesty. Suddenly she tackles him to the floor. Armand is in shock, sensing impending danger. He bites in her finger. Rosetta drags him close, whispers in his ears. She asked to be forgiven for being rude. She then kisses him. Armand wonders what's happening. Later she wakes up in His Majesty's bed. Armand declares that he'll take care of her from now on. Rosetta thought about the unexpected kiss with the crown prince before she collapsed. There must be a reason for it. Rosetta smelled black tea, a scent unmistakable to her. She thought of poisonous sitar. She must extract the poison from his mouth, even if it means enduring its toxicity. Richard came and asked if everything was all right with His Majesty and if he should call a priest. Rosetta instructed him to call the priest immediately. Back in the present time, the Duke asked how she knew the tea was poisoned. Rosetta replied that she is familiar with the smell of that poison. The culprit has already committed suicide, the Duke informed. Rosetta thought to herself, "Even if his tone is a bit off, I can't believe he's answering me. If he's going to be like this, I would eat poison 100 times over." Prince mentioned that he is fine, but it is actually the woman who consumed more poison, so she is likely to pass away in a few days. Rosetta wondered if that is why he is being so kind. Prince asked if there is anything she desires, and he will do everything in his power to fulfill her wish, as she could have died in his place. Rosetta thought that an ordinary maid wouldn't have been killed by that much poison, but she is an awakened swordmaster, so she will be fine. However, she can't exactly reveal that. Should she tell them about her strong constitution? Wait a minute, could this be a significant opportunity? Rosetta assured Prince that there is no need for that. There might be a chance for her survival. Prince thought he knew she was foolish, but it seems like the poison has affected her sanity. He told her no, and fortunately, it's highly unlikely. Rosetta said that he only has one wish, to allow her to stay by his side and serve him until the very end. Prince replied that if she understood the seriousness of the situation, she wouldn't make such a request. Rosetta spoke up, saying that if she is going to die anyway, there is no point in leaving her wealth to a family she doesn't get along with. She would rather serve the prince until the end and maintain some honor. She believed that for the prince, granting this request was more challenging than giving money or power. However, the prince could empathize with her struggle to find purpose in life, even if it was a small one. Prince stated that he will fulfill her last wish. He appointed Rosetta as his sole and exclusive maid until her death. In the next scene, the maid asked if she was okay, as they said she was going to die. Rosetta replied that she is not going to die. The priest healed her, and rumors tend to spread like that. Her body is perfectly fine without any injuries. The maid expressed her happiness upon hearing this news, now that she has received permission. Is she interested in sleeping here together tonight? The maid mentioned that it feels like going back to her childhood. Rosetta agreed, realizing that she had been so busy training to become a knight that she didn't have time to meet friends. No wonder this feels exciting. Rosetta then asked what she should do if she wants to be close to this person. Rosetta confirmed that he is indeed a man and thought about how he is weak but good-looking. Melanie asked if it was Lord Richard, but Melanie brushed it off, saying she is oblivious to such things. Anyway, if she wants to get close to both of them, the best way is through physical contact. The next day, a prince stated that he doesn't need a bath attendant, that it's a shameless hobby. The prince asked if she had already declined and if her intentions were something else. She asked if the duke thought her real motive was his body. Rosetta thought that he finally noticed that she wants to get closer to him. After some time, Rosetta told him that she will help him change his clothes. The prince insisted that he didn't need help, which Rosetta found rude. Richard asked if this was regarding something, and Rosetta asked if he could keep what he heard a secret. Richard agreed and asked if her body was okay. Rosetta assured him that it's fine and that if he heard anything, it's just a rumor. She then mentioned that she thinks this situation could have been handled better, as his safety is more important than anything else. Richard replied that her heart is very kind, thinking about someone else's well-being before her own. Rosetta thought to herself, "What is this? I was just giving advice as a senior knight. His response is too slow." Richard asked if she has time this weekend, but the prince stated that there won't be time. This girl will have a busy schedule taking care of him. He realized that she wasn't just interested in his appearance, but also had to protect Lord Richard. When Richard asked if she would accompany him to the main palace, Armand responded that it wasn't necessary. However, Rosetta insisted that she would hold his parasol and share interesting stories with him along the way. Armand found her annoying but agreed to listen while she held the parasol. In the next scene, Armand wondered how she could manage to hold the heavy parasol with her small arms. Despite his doubts, she captivated him with her storytelling. Rosetta, who had worked for him for 10 years, could tell by his expression that he was genuinely interested. Armand found the story somewhat intriguing and asked where she got the information from. Rosetta admitted that it had been a while since she heard about it and couldn't remember it well. In reality, she was the one who orchestrated the king's assassination and obtained the earrings, but she couldn't reveal this secret. Richard felt embarrassed for not asking earlier, as he was too engrossed in listening. He wondered how she managed to hold the parasol with her frail body. Rosetta replied that he underestimated the work of a maid and that holding the parasol wasn't even worth breaking a sweat. She was considered strong even among the other maids. She recalled that even in the past, she had an unusual strength. Then she noticed Armand struggling and holding onto him tightly. He told her to go back inside, leaving her to ponder that holding a parasol was nothing compared to wielding a sword. However, she acknowledged that a 20-year-old's body was weaker than a 30-year-old's, which made her wonder if it would take her 5 years to become a swordmaster. She felt frustrated because, as a maid this time, she didn't have much time to train. She decided to talk to Valerian to explore other possibilities. Valerian, the youngest person to ever become the Archmage of the Empire, made the selfless decision to forego the prestigious title of Master of the Tower. Instead, he dedicated himself to serving the imperial family, particularly Rosetta, whom he considered more like a family member than her own blood relatives. One day, Valerian found himself in the middle of the palace garden. To Rosetta, Valerian was like a brother, and being in his company brought her comfort. As Rosetta grew older and entered adulthood, the only downside to Valerian was his overly affectionate nature. In public, he appeared serious, but in front of her, he acted like a dog. However, looking at his face, Rosetta couldn't help but forgive him for everything. Rosetta mentioned that she would soon visit Valerian's research lab once she finished her work. Valerian expressed his pride in her newfound friendships and jokingly asked if he could give her a hug, and embraced her. Rosetta declared that there would be no next time, as she valued her self-respect, something Valerian seemed to lack. Just then, Armand arrived and inquired about the person who had been sitting next to Rosetta. Rosetta wondered if he had seen her meeting with Valerian, but she quickly dismissed the thought, believing that Armand saw Valerian as someone who protected her. As Armand had received training as a prince, his eyesight should be better than most knights. Rosetta decided to be shameless for the moment and replied that Valerian was a friend who worked at the main palace. She assured Armand that he was a trustworthy individual. Rosetta pondered what Armand was thinking, as his paranoia had led them to this point. Rosetta experienced a fit of coughing, blood escaping her lips. Despite this, she assured Armand that she was fine. Armand, however, couldn't help but worry as he observed the blood. He held her close as she descended, and Rosetta couldn't believe he had caught her off guard. Suspicion lingered in his mind, yet he still felt sorry for her. This was an opportunity she couldn't afford to miss, Rosetta thought. Expressing her gratitude, she thanked Armand for saving her life. Armand, on the other hand, couldn't help but wonder if he was the reason she was in this state. Did he inadvertently cause her harm? Rosetta reassured him that she was perfectly fine, but warned him about the potential damage to his skin if he stayed in the sun for too long. Agreeing with her, Armand felt a tingling sensation and suggested they return indoors. After some time, Armand mentioned that he had only allowed her into his bedroom to clean it, so she should finish the task and leave. Rosetta acknowledged his command and referred to him as His Majesty. However, she couldn't help but notice the withered flowers in the room. She questioned if another maid had placed them there. Armand dismissed her concern, but when Rosetta asked if the flowers were from someone special, he confirmed it. This sparked Rosetta's curiosity, wondering if Lady Lanella had given them to him. House Lanella, known for their close ties to the imperial family, had consolidated their power in the empire. Rosetta still remembered Lady Lanella because she was set to marry Armand in a few years, although their relationship was merely a formality due to Armand's questionable nature. Their interactions had always been cold. Armand couldn't help but notice that Rosetta had been cleaning his room more frequently lately. Rosetta justified this by explaining that changing bed sheets regularly was beneficial for his skin. Armand questioned why it mattered, to which Rosetta passionately exclaimed that even with his current appearance, his skin remained flawless and beautiful. She couldn't help but feel good just by looking at him, as his looks were his most redeeming quality. If it weren't for his handsome face, she wouldn't be in his presence. Armand mentioned that she has gone insane. It appears that she has lost her fear since she was about to die anyway. Rosetta believed that she crossed the line because she was too excited. Then she apologized. Armand wondered if she was crying, considering that she was completely unfazed by the limit of her life. He questioned why she wasn't saying anything. Rosetta thought to herself, let's just kneel. Armand declared that her body wasn't even in good condition, but Rosetta interrupted him and said, it's all her fault. His Majesty, Armand, exclaimed, what is she doing right now? Then he pondered why her body was so thin. He advised her not to do anything stupid. Rosetta thought that kneeling must have done the trick. Armand informed her that tomorrow at 11 a.m., she would be ready. They were going to create some memories together before she died. After some time, Rosetta contemplated that Armand suggested meeting first, but she wondered if he would actually show up the next day. Rosetta was prepared, and Armand arrived. She thought to herself, so he actually showed up. In the carriage, Armand asked if she really had to wear that outfit. Rosetta replied that she didn't have any other suitable clothes. Armand inquired if her clothes had been sent from the Baron yet. Rosetta responded negatively, but she believed that her current attire was still suitable for boating. Armand thought about how surprising it was that an aristocrat didn't have a single decent set of clothes. He observed that she had been abused by the Baron her whole life, becoming a maid, and now she was going to die instead of him. Meanwhile, Rosetta thought that dresses were uncomfortable to train in, which is why she only owned pants. She considered not having clothes to be a concern. Armand asked if she wanted clothes, offering to buy them for her. Rosetta politely declined, expressing that she was fine and didn't need anything. However, she thought to herself that she already had everything she wanted. If he truly wished to do something for her, she asked him not to die. After some time, Rosetta remarked, it's a pretty lake. His Majesty allowed Letton to board the boat. Armand agreed, saying she could go. Rosetta inquired, just to be sure. Armand clarified that he meant for her to go alone, as she should already have everything she needs. The boat was meant for her to go on her own. Rosetta thought that no one enjoys boating alone, especially since she doesn't even like boating. The boats just bob and drift on the surface of the water. She might as well use that time to swing her sword and train. However, the reason she was excited about this proposal was that she looked forward to spending time alone with Armand. She then asked if she was really riding alone. He then thought about what he had gotten himself into. Rosetta expressed surprise that he was really coming along for the ride. Armand stated that as long as she kept her mouth shut. Richard reflected on how it had been a year since he served His Majesty and couldn't believe his luck. What a great opportunity he would have to thank him later. Armand told him to stay here, as at least one person should stay out of the water to be safe. Richard replied that he understood. In the next scene, Rosetta thought that thanks to magic, the boat moved automatically. It wasn't as bad as she thought. The scenery and its beauty looked like a painting. She asked if he enjoyed boating, to which Armand replied no. When she asked why not, Armand thought back to when he was little and was asking for help, but no one protected him. He mentioned having some bad memories of it, but assured her not to worry. Since she had been assigned to his palace, she had been facing hardships. Rosetta corrected him, saying she wasn't assigned, she volunteered. Armand questioned why she would volunteer if the maids didn't like his palace. Rosetta replied that she wanted to protect His Highness. Armand asked with what power, to which Rosetta mentioned seeing her with the parasol and how she had already saved His Highness once. Suddenly, the boat experienced a slight turbulence. Rosetta found herself in the presence of Armand, who expressed his inability to find a way to save her. This revelation caused her heart to race, leaving her wondering how she could protect him. Rosetta pondered why her heart reacted this way, as physical contact had never been embarrassing for her before. However, in this particular situation, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed. She couldn't let her embarrassment show. With gratitude, she thanked His Majesty for saving her life. Armand, however, swiftly moved on, questioning how long she intended to remain seated on him. Rosetta explained that she had planned to sit there before she fell again. This response shocked Armand. After some time, Rosetta realized that it was inappropriate to sit on his thigh, as he was His Majesty. Confused, Armand couldn't understand how she could spend time with someone who was responsible for her mortality. Despite this, Rosetta remained unfazed. She was willing to risk her life for him. The reason behind this is because he was her first failure, and with every regression her emotions faded away, leaving only the desire for his survival. Rosetta believed that as long as he was alive, she would be happy, even if he didn't recognize her or became a normal person. Survival was her only goal. When asked about her reasons for trying to save him, Rosetta kept it a secret, knowing that even a normal maid could have secrets. Regardless, her desire to protect him was genuine.